Hi guys, in this tutorial I'm going to share with you how to create the Bantu knot technique. Okay guys, so our model Janelle's hair has been dried and it's set, so it's ready for us to do the taking out of the Bantu knots. So I'll just remind you again in terms of the timing. Just make sure you set your model or whoever's hair you're styling under the hood dryer for as long as it's necessary to do so, because if the hair is not completely dry and you proceed and you do your taking out, it's not going to stay and hold very well. So her hair was set and dried and I've already checked it to make sure that it was completely dry before I went ahead and start the process of taking out the hair. So I'm just going to turn her to the side so that we can see the process of taking out the hair. Now when I start the taking out of the hair, I need to make sure that I have the right products to actually aid me with the process. So for this you can use any serum or oil that will be put on the hair itself as part of the finishing product, but it's also going to be used to help to smooth along the hair itself to reduce any frizz that you don't want to see in the hair. If you've used your elastic bands, as I did when I set the Bantu knots, you probably want to remove the elastic bands first and then proceed and do the actual applying of the oil so that your fingers are not too slippery for you to be able to remove the elastic band. When I put the elastic band on here, because I've already checked one of these Bantu knots to make sure that it was dry, the elastic band is right underneath the base here. So what I'm just going to do is to actually release the Bantu knots, and then afterwards I'll go in and I will use my pintail comb to help me to stretch out the small elastic band so I can actually remove that. So I'm going to go ahead and apply my oil, and this will be applied in the palm of my hand, and then I'll just smooth it along the Bantu knots as I do the taking out. The hair oil that I'm using is the Charlotte Mensa Makati hair oil, and that will just be lightly applied throughout the hair. So when I do the taking out, I'm just unwinding the Bantu knot, just being mindful to be gentle so that I don't loosen the coil or the curl that I've created too much. Again, because the hair is dried in nicely, I'm not worried about the hair losing the hold of the curl that we've actually created in the hair. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and remove that. So I'm going to take out two here and I'll show you how we do the taking out and the separating. So on here, I'm going to remove my elastic band that is just holding the hair there. If you have long nails, it might be easy for you to remove, but I always use my pintail comb to allow me to help to stretch out the elastic band a little bit more. And I'll just unwind that, just smoothing that oil along the hair. So the next thing we will do is ideally you want to remove everything out of the hair first. So you just undo your Bantu knots, remove the elastic bands, and then you want to then go in and actually do the separating of the hair. But on here I'm just going to quickly demonstrate how you proceed and you actually do the separating. So we start off with just one large section. You can see here, the more we separate this section, the fuller the hair is going to be. So I can either separate this into maybe 4 sections first to start off with, and then I'll do the same thing for all the Bantu knots, and then I go back in a second time and separate out a little bit more. So you want to take your time, you don't want to over separate the hair too much at the starting point here. So what I'm going to do is, when we did this, I pre-twisted the section clockwise, but now I'm going to twist it the opposite way just to loosen that a little bit more, just like that. And then I'll go in just in the middle and then I start to separate out the hair. So I just gently unravel the knot that I created and separate out the hair, and then continue to do the same thing here. Okay, so every time I separate out that, I'm just using the oil that I have to just gently reposition that hair back into where it was before, because when I separate out this out, it looks a little bit more frizzy like that, but when I take that oil or the serum and just smooth it along the hair, it just brings back the shape back to the coil that we've actually created. Okay, so that's why it's important to ensure that the hair dries completely, because if this wasn't really dry, as I go to separate this, it will just sit a little bit more frizzy, and we won't be able to manipulate the shape to go back into that curl that we want to have when we style the Bantu knots out. Okay, so I'm not sure how many separations I've done right now, but as you can see, there's quite a lot. And I'm just working through that section here. I'm still working in that one section. So that's why it's important when you do your sectioning for your Bantu knots, you want to intentionally keep them a little bit more on the medium to the large size. You don't want to do them too small because you want to leave enough room for you to be able to go in and separate out the hair as much as you need to. Because if it's too small and you separate out the hair, it's just going to become a little bit more frizzy. So I'm just going to show you a little bit more just on this section here, and then I'll go ahead and remove the rest of the Bantu knots out of the hair. Again, applying a little bit of my oil in my hand, just ensuring that's going to help me with the process. Smooth it along the section, and then untwist the hair the opposite direction to how you pre-twisted the section to begin with, and then just start to work your way in. And if you need to, start right from the ends of the hair just to avoid any areas where the hair could tangle around itself, then you just take your time and do that. Now this process of taking out the Bantu knots, depending on the size that you've done in the hair that you're working on, it could be anything between 30 minutes to 40 minutes of taking out, separating and dressing the hair. So keep that in mind if you need to know exactly how long it's going to take you for the process, and you just allow yourself enough time to be able to do that, especially for you guys who work in film and TV. And you're not always given enough time to actually do a lot of prep. So you want to keep that in mind. If you're planning to do this kind of look, you need to know that you need to allow time for the hair to dry. You need to allow time for the hair to actually set, and then allow yourself enough time to do the taking out and the dressing of the hair as well, okay? So I'm about to finish separating this out a little bit more. So always take your time, take a step back and have a look at the hair. Is it sitting as full as you want to? Do you feel that you need to separate out the strands a little bit more? But if you feel that, okay, this is enough to work with, to start off with, then you leave that alone, you proceed to the rest of the hair. You can always come back to it and then re-separate out the hair and dress it out a little bit more. But just be mindful that you don't want to get too carried away and separate out the hair too much where you end up losing the curl texture that you've created and the hair ending up being quite frizzy as well. So right now I'm going to go ahead and start undoing all the Bantu knots, removing the elastic band, and then I'll continue with the process as I just did here, separating out those sections, using my oil to aid with the process to make sure that we get a really nice finish on our curls that we've created there. So I've completed the takeout on our Bantu knots. As you can see, we've got a really nice curl working through the hair there. And the final thing I'll do in terms of like the touch up that we need to do, because Janelle already has very long hair and it's quite thick, so we're able to create a lot of volume, but I can go in a little bit more and comb through the root area a little bit more to raise the volume just slightly. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. And for that, I will be using my Afro comb to do that. If you didn't have an Afro comb, you could use a wide tooth comb. So that's part of dressing the hair. If you're working on someone who doesn't necessarily have very thick and long hair, you'll have to make sure you do your separating, you're combing through the roots to cover up and blend any sections that you don't want to be visible through the hair itself. So I will just demonstrate that for you. So with my Afro comb, I would literally take that through to the root area and then just stretch out about 1.5 inches away from the scalp and then let go. So that will naturally help to start to expand the volume. And if I need to work through and separate out some of the sections a little bit more, that's what I'm going to do as well. So the final touch up I'm going to do is to lift the roots slightly a little bit more, go in and maybe lay baby hairs that she has there at the front, just to add a nice finish to the style as well. And well, I will be applying my Charlotte Mensah Hair Mikati finishing mist just to add a little bit of a final shine to the hair as well. A hairspray or holding spray is not necessary at this point because the curl is naturally going to hold by itself. But if you're doing this look more for like an editorial look and you want us to dress the hair out a little bit more and exaggerate the shape, you could do that by adding some of the hairspray, and then you're going to blow dry that into the hair while you're holding the hair up. That will start to change the structure and how the volume is sitting on the hair as well. So that's something that you could do. But at this point, if you're happy with how the hair looks and you feel that you don't need to do any more separating, you just leave the hair as it is, and then the style would be complete. But for me, I'm going to go ahead and stretch out the roots just a little bit more with my comb, and then do the finishing touches on the hair as well. Another thing I want to note is if I just turn her around, sometimes there will be areas where maybe the ends didn't come out as curled as I wanted to. Like you can see on this one here, I would just go over that with my very small curler just to define the curl just a little bit more, and then just work that through. So it's always good to have some of your tools at hand that can help you to just create a nice finish and definition on the curls that we want. Overall, we have a good curl, and you always want to aim to create the nice finished curl by just creating the Bantu knot technique. But sometimes there are those areas that we can use some of our heat styling tools just to finish and give us a little bit more of a definition there in the hair. So that is one thing I'll also proceed and do with my curls. And I'm going to leave it with a side parting that we have here, and then I'll just style out the hair. So I'll go ahead and do that with my Afro comb. And again, I'm just placing that directly to the root area, and then just combing the hair. If I just turn you slightly, you know, and so this will just go directly in. So again, avoid combing directly over the curls. You want to just gently go in through the roots and then stretch out the hair slightly, always stopping and checking to see if it's forming the shape that you want to. So you don't want to get to a point where you over comb the hair and you start creating more frizz in the hair itself. So that's what I'm just going to go ahead and do throughout the hair, and then just dress the hair a little bit more and just give it a nice finish, and then we'll come back and we'll show you how that hair looks once it's done. Okay guys, so that's our completed look with the Bantu knot styling out. I've went ahead and I separated out my sections a little bit more, and I use my combing technique to stretch out the roots just a little bit more. Just to the front there, just to style out the baby hairs, I went in a little bit with my Style Factor Edge Booster just to lay down the front part of the baby hairs. There is a little bit of laying on the other side, but you can't see it because it's covered with the hair on the side. So again, we managed to achieve this really nice, beautiful corkscrew curl with our Bantu knot technique, and a nice finish on that, just making sure the hair is set and dry. That's the key thing. Use the right products, make sure you give it enough time to set and to dry. Always check one first before you take everything out, because the last thing you want to do is to have everything still not be completely dry. You take it out and then it just messes up the finish for you. So always allow yourself that time for the drying process. If at all possible, just give it at least a day or two for the Bantu knots to set before you actually do the taking out of the hair. But otherwise, yeah, that's how you create your Bantu knot takeout to create a corkscrew curl in your type 4 hair texture and natural setting technique for those hair textures.